Welcome to the SteelersFix Podcast, your home for daily Steelers talk with zero filter and full Yinzer energy. Before we dive in, do me a quick favor. Hit subscribe on the SteelersFix YouTube channel so you never miss an episode, and drop a like if you're listening over there. It helps way more than you think. All right, let's get into it. We've got a lot on the plate today. Teryl Austin at the podium, Arthur Smith owning the offensive struggles, Aaron Rodgers putting a quiet challenge out there to everybody not named DK Metcalf, some key roster and injury updates, what it all means for this week's rematch with the Bengals at Acrisure, and then I'll give you my prediction for the game at the end. Let's start with the defense and Teryl Austin. Austin came out, and you could tell right away he likes where the secondary is trending, even if it's not all the way where it needs to be yet. He was asked about Asante Samuel Jr., and he wasn't ready to say, yeah, he's playing Sunday. You can tell Samuel's still getting acclimated, still getting his legs back under him after the spinal fusion and getting used to this system. But what stood out was how confident Austin sounded about the fit. He really believes Samuel is going to mesh well in this single high structure they've been leaning on, especially now that you've got Jalen Ramsey and Kyle Duggar locking things down at safety. Those two have brought stability on the back end that just flat out wasn't there early in the year. Austin basically said, with that kind of stability behind them, this defense should be better against the Bengals this time around. They've got Samuel working strictly outside right now. That tells you two things. One, they see him as a true outside corner, not just a gadget or depth piece. Two, they're trying to clean up the structure on the back end. Ramsey, Duggar, your main safeties, a more settled corner room, and then mixing in looks off that. Austin also talked about the way you defend a quarterback who gets the ball out quick. And that's exactly what they're getting in Joe Flacco right now. He said you've got to mix it up. You can't just sit in the same zones, same leverage, same pre-snap picture, and expect a veteran like Flacco not to carve you up. That's what happened last time. No takeaways, too soft on key downs, and Flacco just kept taking whatever was there. He also dropped a great line about Cam Hayward, called him a unicorn. And honestly, he's right. Cam's about to move into second most games played in Steelers history, and he's still out there playing at a high level, setting the tone, doing all the dirty work inside. You don't get many guys in this league who can play that long in the trenches and still be that impactful. Austin made it clear he hasn't lost faith in guys like Brandon Echols either. Even after what happened in LA, he's not tossing Echols in the trash. That matters because with Darius Slay in the concussion protocol, you're going to need everybody in that corner room locked in and ready. The other big thing he hit on was tackling. He doesn't think it's an effort issue, which is important. He's not saying guys are scared to tackle. He's saying the angles and the technique have to be better. That lines up with what we're seeing on film. Guys overrunning, diving, bad pursuit paths, not wrapping. If they want to get off the field on third down against Cincinnati, that has to be cleaned up this week. No way around it. Now let's flip to the other side of the ball. Arthur Smith. Smith came out, and you could tell he's still stewing over that Chargers game. The first thing that came up was Jaylen Warren and his touches. Everybody's asking the same question. Why isn't Warren getting the ball more? Smith basically said, look, when you don't sustain drives and you're behind on the scoreboard, the numbers are going to get skewed. In other words, we were chasing the game, we weren't converting third downs, and the whole plan kind of fell apart. He pointed out that they want to run it. They want Jalen involved. But the way last week went, there just weren't enough plays to go around. And to be fair, when you're 2 for 11 on third down, your running back's carry count is almost always going to look weird. Smith also talked about what they're doing with DK Metcalf. They're moving DK all over the formation to try to get him away from those constant doubles on third downs motion, stacks, bunches, different alignments. That's going to continue. But he also made it clear it can't just be throw it to DK and pray. He said the group has to own it and look at yourself, and that it starts with him. That's what you want to hear from your offensive coordinator, no finger pointing. No throwing Rodgers or the O-line under the bus. Smith said flat out, last week's problems don't fall on Aaron Rodgers, it's on all of them. He did give the group some credit, though. He said he likes the resiliency and the selflessness in the room. Guys weren't pouting after that game, they just understood they blew an opportunity. That's the mentality you need heading into a divisional game like this. Roman Wilson came up too, and you can tell they see him trending in the right direction. Smith basically said, He's taken advantage of his opportunities, and it's an ongoing process. The question now is, can they get him real snaps in real moments, not just garbage time stuff at the end of blowouts or when defenses are soft? That has to be part of the plan moving forward, especially with the WR2 situation still unsettled. Smith also talked about the deep ball. He said they do try to push the ball downfield every week, and he's right. Sometimes it's the coverage, sometimes it's the protection, sometimes Rodgers doesn't like the look and comes off it. They're going to keep hunting explosives. They just need better execution to actually hit them. Now let's talk about Rodgers and that little challenge he slid in there. After practice, Rodgers was calm. He's not panicking over one ugly game against the Chargers. He basically said, if the process is right, you don't have to freak out. Every once in a while, you're going to have a stinker. And with his career, you believe him. He's been through this before and come out fine. He gave the Chargers credit, said they've got a good defense, they clamped down, and he missed some throws he usually hits. But the part that really jumps out is what he said about everybody not named DK Metcalf. Rodgers flat out said, guys got to get open and make plays. DK's getting doubled every third down. That's the reality. If defenses know nobody else can consistently win, they're going to keep rolling coverage at 14 and force someone else to beat them. Rodgers didn't throw anybody under the bus by name, but the message was clear. If you're a receiver on this team and your name isn't DK, this is your wake-up call. Calvin Austin III has been the main wide receiver too so far, and it's been up and down. Last week, it was down. 2 drops, including the one that went off his hands and turned into an interception. You just can't have that in a tight game. Roman Wilson is the 3rd-round pick a lot of people inside the building really like, but right now his production has been more late-game cleanup than true impact minutes. That has to change if this offense is going to hit another gear. Then there's Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He's on the practice squad right now. He's still learning the offense, but the chemistry with Rodgers is already there from their Green Bay days. Rodgers said he needs more reps with the first team before he's really ready to go full tilt on Sundays, but you can see the path. If MVS gets comfortable in the scheme, he can stretch the field and punish defenses for doubling DK. Scotty Miller is another name to watch. He's coming back from the finger injury, cleared to practice, and Rodgers loves him. So did Tom Brady when they were together in Tampa. Rodgers said it perfectly. He runs fast and he catches the ball. He's unselfish and super smart. That's exactly the type of role player this offense needs right now. A guy who will be in the right spot at the right time and just quietly move the chains. All right, let's hit the roster moves and injury notes, because they matter a lot for this Bengals game. Asante Samuel Jr. is officially on the practice squad. That's a low-risk, high-reward move. He's coming off that major spinal surgery, but he's been cleared by both Dr. Okonkwo, who works with the Steelers, and another big-time spine specialist. You're talking about a guy with production already in this league. Picks, pass breakups, real ball skills. If he shows in practice that he can still move and tackle, he can absolutely end up helping this defense down the stretch. Will Howard was activated off injured reserve. Today was the deadline to make that call. If they didn't pull the trigger, his season was done. They did, so he's officially back in the mix behind Rodgers. To make room, Trey Sermon got waived from the active roster, and Derek Forrest was released from the practice squad. They also moved on from Juan Thornhill, who confirmed it himself before the team made it official. That move cleared a spot for Sebastian Castro, claimed off waivers from Tampa Bay, and now back in Pittsburgh after originally signing here as an undrafted free agent. Tomlin basically said Thornhill's play wasn't up to snuff, and this was more about wanting Castro back than anything else. Injury-wise, Darius Slay is in the concussion protocol. That's obviously big. Tomlin said he's comfortable with the depth behind him, but anytime your top corner is in protocol going into a game against a receiver like Jamar Chase, you get a little nervous. Cole Holcomb's dealing with an illness but expected to practice. Peppers and Seumalo are limited, but Tomlin sounded optimistic about Seumalo in particular. And again, Scotty Miller is cleared to practice, which quietly matters a lot for what this offense wants to be. Now, the big overarching theme from Tomlin this week: third downs and complementary football. The Chargers game was the worst offensive outing of the season. 2 for 11 on third down. Didn't convert one until late in the fourth quarter. That absolutely killed everything. Scoring, time of possession, rhythm, the run game, all of it. Tomlin said they had the bones of a good run game by both plan and performance, but Jaylen Warren only got 14 carries. Why? Because they couldn't stay on the field. And that's the key quote. We win more third downs. We will get Jalen more touches. It's as simple as that. Through 10 weeks, they're near the bottom of the league in third down conversion rate and time of possession. Yet they're one of the better red zone offenses when they actually get down there. The problem is they're not getting enough trips inside the 20. Tomlin also circled back to the WR2 problem and how it ties into third down. They haven't done a good enough job getting guys other than DK into favorable situations, and those guys haven't done a good enough job winning when they do get opportunities. That's why we're sitting here still talking about it. He did point out Pat Freiermuth as a zone killer, especially against teams like the Bengals who live in zone coverage. The crazy part is the Chargers play a ton of zone too, and Freiermuth still only had 3 targets. That has to change. If you're going to use all this 13 personnel and be tight end heavy, then the tight ends need to be a bigger part of the actual solution on possession downs, not just window dressing. Defensively, Tomlin knows they can't keep living and dying by turnovers. When they don't get a takeaway, they're 1-3. The last Bengals game was the perfect example. No turnovers, Chase goes off, Flacco shreds the secondary, and they lose a shootout. TJ Watt even said it. They've got to get off the field, stop the run, and win critical third downs without always needing a splash turnover to bail them out. All right, let's tie all this into the Bengals preview, and then I'll give you my prediction. The Steelers are 5-4 and somehow still sitting on top of the AFC North, but it doesn't feel like it because they've dropped 3 of 4. The first crack in the armor was that loss in Cincinnati, 33-31. That's the game where Rodgers and Flacco went shot for shot, and the Steelers' defense just couldn't get a stop when they needed it. Cincinnati right now is hanging on, waiting for Joe Burrow to come back, and Flacco is doing exactly what they're asking, keep them afloat. He's putting up big yardage, taking what's there, and giving them a chance every week. They know if they can sweep the Steelers, it keeps them alive in the division race. On paper, this is the week the Steelers' offense should wake up. The Bengals' defense is near the bottom of the league in almost every major category. They're giving up huge numbers on the ground, their tackling is brutal, and opponents are racking up yards after contact because that first guy is missing way too often. If you're Pittsburgh, that screams Jaylen Warren game. Run the ball at them, make them tackle for 4 quarters, and build the pass game off of that. Play action, boots, shots to DK, crossers to Roman Wilson, seams and option routes for Freiermuth. This doesn't have to be complicated, it just has to be committed. The key is third down. If the Steelers can stay in third and manageable by leaning on Warren on early downs, they can finally get some rhythm. And when they do get to third down, that's where the WR2 conversation and Freiermuth's zone killer label really matter. You've got to punish the Bengals when they rotate coverage to DK. You can't let them double him every big down and get away with it. On defense, it's about 2 things. Don't let Chase single-handedly wreck the game again, and don't rely on turnovers to survive. With Ramsey and Duggar helping on the back end, and potentially some Asante Samuel Jr. sprinkled in later this season, this group should be better structured than it was in the first meeting. But they have to tackle better, they have to mix coverages like Austin talked about, and they have to win on third down without always needing a strip sack or tipped ball pick. If they do that, if the offense plays more complementary ball, if the run game is featured instead of abandoned, and if the defense just plays sound, assignment-clean football, this is a game they absolutely should win at home. All right, let's get to the prediction. I'm expecting a bounce back from Aaron Rodgers. I think Arthur Smith comes out with a plan that leans heavily on Jaylen Warren early, uses more Freiermuth on those money downs, and finally gets one of these other receivers involved. Whether that's Calvin Austin locking in, Roman Wilson making a real impact before garbage time, or Scotty Miller sneaking in a couple of big plays. Defensively, I don't think this becomes the lockdown performance we've all been waiting for, but I do think they're better than the first matchup I'll give Flacco his yards. He's been hot, but I think Austin's group tightens things up just enough in the red zone and on third down, and maybe they finally steal one takeaway in a big spot. My prediction? Steelers 27, Bengals 23. Rodgers throws 2 touchdowns, Jaylen Warren goes over 100 total yards, DK Metcalf finds the end zone, and Pat Freiermuth reminds everybody why Tomlin calls him a zone killer. The defense bends but doesn't break. Cam Hayward makes at least one huge play late, and the Steelers move to 6-4 and calm the noise, at least for a week. That's going to do it for today's episode of the SteelersFix Podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and let me know your score prediction in the comments. If you think I'm crazy for picking the Steelers, tell me why. Until next time, thanks for riding with me. Here we go.